All right, so welcome to the deep dive.
Yep.
And today we're going to get into some beef tallow skincare.
Ooh.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's been trending on TikTok. A lot of people talking about it online. So we figured we would take a deep dive, see what it's all about.
Yeah, we've got some interesting sources. I know we have a functional medicine doctor who talks about it.
Yeah.
We have some TikToks, and we even have a review from somebody on Reddit who's actually used beef tallow in their routine.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're going to cover all that.
All right, let's dive in.
Let's dive in. So first of all, when we talk about beef tallow, what are we talking about?
Beef tallow is rendered fat from a cow.
Okay.
And, it's interesting because tallow has such a long history.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, this is not a new thing.
It's not new at all. It's actually been used for centuries.
Right.
Way back in the day, this was one of the main ways that people would moisturize their skin or even use it for medicinal purposes.
Yeah.
Like ancient civilizations were using this stuff. So it's not like some new fad.
It's funny because I was reading that McDonald's French fries
Yeah.
used to be cooked in beef tallow
Yes.
up until like the 90s.
Yeah.
And so it's like this ingredient that we've kind of moved away from. But it's coming back.
It is. And, there's this whole movement towards clean beauty, natural ingredients. And I think that's why tallow is having this resurgence.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because it's like going back to basics. It's a very simple ingredient, and it's very natural.
Yeah, and when you think about what tallow is, like you said, it's rendered fat. It's basically taking the suet, that hard fat, and like cooking it down until you have this like, I don't know, like this oil almost.
Yeah, it's like a pure fat.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to the sebum that our skin naturally produces.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it makes sense that it could be really beneficial for the skin.
Okay, I'm seeing that. So then, why is it trending now? Why are we hearing so much about beef tallow? I mean, obviously we talked about the clean beauty movement, but what else is going on?
Well, I think TikTok has a lot to do with it.
I was going to say, we've been seeing this trend all over TikTok.
Right. It's like every skincare influencer is talking about beef tallow, like how it's transformed their skin.
Yeah.
And you know how convincing those before and afters can be.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like people are ditching their $100 moisturizers for like a little tub of tallow.
Exactly.
And they're saying their skin has never looked better.
I know. One of the comments that I saw that really stood out to me was somebody said, "My grandma used to use tallow on everything, and her skin was flawless. Now I know why."
Really?
Yeah, I thought that was so interesting.
That's so funny because it's true. It's like these old school remedies. Sometimes they work.
They really do.
Right. Like what did they know back then that we've kind of forgotten?
That's a great question. And I think that's part of the appeal of beef tallow. It's this rediscovery of something that's been around for ages.
Yeah, it's like tapping into ancient wisdom or something.
Yeah.
All right. So we're seeing this trend on TikTok. Everyone's raving about it.
Right.
But is it all hype? Or is there actually something to this beef tallow skincare thing?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
Right. And I think the answer is somewhere in between, like anything else. It's not a miracle cure-all. But there are definitely some potential benefits.
Okay, so what are some of those benefits?
Well, first of all, beef tallow is incredibly nourishing for the skin. It's packed with vitamins A, D, E, and K.
Okay, now hold on. When I hear vitamins, I'm thinking like what I need to eat
Right.
to be healthy. But you're saying these vitamins are also good for my skin.
They are amazing for your skin.
Okay.
And beef tallow is like a natural source of all of them.
Huh.
So, for example, vitamin A is great for reducing fine lines and wrinkles.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Vitamin D can actually help with acne, and then vitamin E is like a powerful antioxidant.
Oh, okay.
So it helps protect your skin from damage.
Interesting. So it's almost like a multivitamin for your face.
Exactly. So you're getting all these nutrients directly into your skin.
That makes sense. Okay, so we have the vitamins. What else is in beef tallow? That makes it so good for skincare.
Well, it also contains something called conjugated linoleic acid, or CLA.
Okay, CLA, what is that?
It's a fatty acid that has some pretty impressive benefits for the skin.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, it's been shown to reduce inflammation.
Oh.
So if you have any redness or irritation, CLA can help calm that down.
Interesting.
And there's even some research suggesting that CLA might have anti-aging properties.
Really?
Yeah, so it could help keep your skin looking youthful and radiant.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got the vitamins, we've got the CLA. It sounds like beef tallow has a lot going for it. Yeah. But I have to ask, what about the clogged pores? Because I've heard that beef tallow can be comedogenic.
Yeah, that's a valid concern, and it's something to be aware of, especially if you have oily or acne-prone skin.
Right.
Because beef tallow is so rich, it can potentially clog pores. Now, I don't want to scare anyone away, because not everyone experiences this.
Yeah.
And there are things you can do to minimize the risk.
Okay, good.
But it's definitely something to keep in mind.
Okay, so it's not like a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right, exactly. It's about finding what works for your individual skin type.
All right, so we've talked about the potential benefits of beef tallow, but we've also talked about the potential drawbacks. So where do we go from here? How do we know if beef tallow is right for us?
Well, I think the best way to figure that out is to look at what other people are saying.
Right.
You know, people who have actually tried beef tallow on their skin.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Like real-life experiences.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we actually found a Reddit review from someone who used beef tallow in their skincare routine.
Oh, cool.
And they were kind enough to share their experience. So let's take a look at what they had to say.
All right, let's hear it. All right, so this Reddit user, they actually had some pretty interesting things to say about their experience with beef tallow.
Yeah, they did. It's a really detailed review. And it seems like they were pretty happy with the results overall.
Okay, so what did they say? Like, what were some of the benefits they noticed?
Well, right off the bat, they talked about how much softer their skin felt.
Okay.
Like after just a few days of using beef tallow, their skin was noticeably smoother and more supple.
Yeah, that's something I've heard from other people too. Like, the softening effect is supposed to be pretty amazing.
It is. And this reviewer, they really emphasized that. Like, they were like, my skin has never felt this soft before.
Wow.
So that's a pretty strong endorsement.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so softer skin, what else?
They also mentioned intense hydration.
Okay.
Which makes sense, right? Because tallow is essentially pure fat.
Right.
So it's like a super moisturizer.
Okay.
And this person, they said that their skin felt so much more hydrated and plump after using beef tallow.
Interesting, because I know some people, like, they shy away from oils and things, like they think it's going to make their skin oilier.
Right.
But it sounds like beef tallow actually does the opposite.
Yeah, it can actually help balance your skin's oil production.
Oh, really?
Because like I said before, it's very similar to our skin's natural sebum.
Right.
So when you apply tallow to your skin, it's almost like you're replenishing those natural oils.
Okay.
And that can actually help regulate your skin sebum production.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have softer skin, we have hydration. What else did this Reddit user have to say?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. They actually talked about how beef tallow helped with their wound healing.
Really?
Yeah. They said they had this little incident where they kind of picked up their skin.
Oh, I've been there.
We've all been there, right?
Yeah.
And they said they basically like messed up a patch of their face.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It wasn't pretty, but they were desperate. So they put beef tallow on it, and they said it healed like magically fast.
No way.
Yeah. They were like, I kid you not, this thing healed in like 6 hours.
Just 6 hours?
6 hours.
That's insane.
It is pretty crazy.
I mean, obviously everyone's skin is different, but still, that's a pretty impressive result.
It is. And, you know, there's actually some science to back this up.
Okay.
Because beef tallow contains those vitamins, A, D, E, and K that we talked about earlier.
Right.
And those vitamins are known to play a role in skin regeneration and repair. So it makes sense that tallow could help speed up the healing process.
Okay, I'm starting to see why people are so excited about this stuff.
Right. It's like this ancient remedy that actually has some modern day benefits.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the good stuff, but what about the bad stuff? Did this Reddit user mention any downsides to using beef tallow?
They did. They did mention one potential downside.
Okay.
Which is that it could clog pores.
Right. Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah. But they specifically said that they noticed this more when they were younger.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. They said that as they got older, their skin became less oily, and they didn't have as much trouble with clogged pores.
Okay. So maybe it's just something to be aware of if you have younger skin.
Yeah. It's definitely something to keep in mind.
Okay. So overall, it sounds like this Reddit user had a pretty positive experience with beef tallow.
Yeah, they did. They definitely seemed impressed with the results.
Okay. So I think we have a pretty good understanding now of like what beef tallow is, why it's trending, and what the potential benefits and drawbacks are.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But let's say someone listening right now is like, okay, I'm intrigued. I want to try this beef tallow thing. what advice would you give them? Like, how do you actually incorporate beef tallow into your skincare routine?
That's a great question. And there are actually a few different ways you can use beef tallow.
Okay.
The simplest way is to just use it straight up as a moisturizer.
Okay.
You can just scoop a little bit out of the jar, warm it up between your fingers, and then apply it to your face.
Oh, okay.
Just like you would any other moisturizer.
Okay. So it's pretty straightforward.
It is very straightforward. And the nice thing about using it this way is that you're not adding any other ingredients.
Right.
So it's like the purest form of beef tallow. Okay, I like that. But what if you want to get a little fancy?
If you want to get fancy, there are tons of DIY recipes out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You can find recipes for beef tallow balms, creams, lip balms, like you name it.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And a lot of these recipes, they use other natural ingredients like essential oils, herbs, butters, things like that.
So you can really customize it to your liking.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to look into some of those recipes.
Yeah, I think you'd have fun with it.
All right. So we have using it straight up as a moisturizer. We have the DIY route. What other options do we have?
You can also use beef tallow as a spot treatment.
Oh, okay.
So if you have a dry patch, a scar, or even eczema,
oh, wow.
you could just dab a little bit of tallow on that specific area.
Interesting. And that's supposed to help.
Yeah, it can be really effective for targeting those problem areas.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so we've got a few different ways to incorporate beef tallow into our skincare routine. But before we all run out and buy a giant tub of tallow, are there any precautions or things we should keep in mind?
Absolutely. There are a few things to keep in mind.
Okay.
First of all, sourcing is key.
Okay.
You want to make sure that you're getting high-quality beef tallow.
Okay.
That's grass-fed and pasture-raised.
So it's kind of like choosing your food.
Exactly. It's the same principle.
Right. You want the good stuff.
You want the good stuff.
Yeah.
Because the quality of the tallow is going to affect the quality of the nutrients.
Makes sense. Okay, so high-quality beef tallow. What else?
The other thing is to always do a patch test.
Okay.
Especially if you have sensitive skin.
Right.
Just apply a small amount of tallow to your inner arm and wait 24 hours to see if there's any reaction.
Okay, good advice.
Oh.
All right, now let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Oh, here we go.
The smell.
Yeah.
Because I know some people are hesitant to try beef tallow because they're worried about smelling like a steak.
Right. Like walking around smelling like a butcher shop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, it's a valid concern.
It is a valid concern.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. High quality, properly rendered beef tallow shouldn't have a strong odor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
It might have a faint, slightly sweet scent.
Okay.
But it's usually barely noticeable.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah. And if you're really sensitive to smells, you can always add a few drops of your favorite essential oil.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Yeah, like lavender rose, citrus blends. Those all work really well.
Okay, so you can kind of mask the scent.
Yeah.
If you need to.
Exactly.
Okay, good to know.
Oh, wait.
So we've covered a lot of ground here about beef tallow skincare.
We have.
But I have a question for you.
Okay.
Remember how we were talking about McDonald's French fries?
Yes.
And how they used to be cooked in beef tallow?
Yes.
So is beef tallow like a cooking ingredient too?
It is.
Really?
Yeah, beef tallow is actually a very versatile ingredient.
Wow.
You can use it for all sorts of cooking.
Like what?
Well, it has a high smoke point, which means it can handle high heat without breaking down.
Okay.
So it's great for searing meats.
Oh, okay.
Roasting vegetables. You can even use it for deep frying.
Wow.
Yeah. And it adds this really rich, buttery flavor to whatever you're cooking.
That's interesting. Okay, so beef tallow is not just for skincare.
It's not just for skincare.
It's a multi-purpose ingredient.
It is a multi-talented ingredient.
All right, so we've talked about beef tallow for skincare. We talked about beef tallow for cooking. But I'm curious about something else.
Okay.
What about other animal fats?
Like what?
Like lard, for example.
Ah, lard.
Yeah, because I know people use lard in baking.
Yes, they do.
So is it like the same thing as beef tallow?
That's a good question. So both tallow and lard are rendered animal fats.
Okay.
But they do have some key differences.
Okay, what are those differences?
Well, tallow comes from beef or mutton,
Okay.
while lard comes from pork fat.
Okay.
So they have slightly different textures, flavors, and best uses.
Okay.
For example, lard is softer. Okay.
And it has a more neutral flavor,
Okay.
which is why it's so popular for baking.
Oh, right. Like pie crusts?
Exactly. Pie crusts, biscuits, things like that.
Oh, okay.
Tallow, on the other hand, has a higher melting point
Okay.
and a richer flavor. So it's often preferred for savory dishes
Okay.
and high heat cooking.
Okay. So they're not exactly interchangeable.
Not always.
No. Okay. So basically, if you're making like flaky biscuits, reach for the lard, sear in a steak, go for the tallow.
Exactly.
Got it.
Okay. So for skincare, though, it sounds like tallow has the edge.
It does seem that way. Yeah.
Based on what we've learned.
Yeah. It's a unique combination of fatty acids and vitamins. It appears to be particularly beneficial for nourishing and protecting the skin.
All right. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about the history of beef tallow, its potential benefits and drawbacks for skincare, and even its surprising uses beyond the beauty aisle.
It's been a journey.
It has. It really has. And it's fascinating to see how this age-old remedy is experiencing a resurgence in popularity.
I agree. And I think there's a bigger lesson here, too.
Oh, what's that?
In a world that's constantly pushing new and often synthetic skincare products, sometimes the simplest, most traditional solutions can be the most effective.
Absolutely.
So it's a reminder that we can sometimes find the answers to our modern-day problems by looking back to the wisdom of our ancestors.
I love that. It really makes you think, huh?
It does.
Like maybe we've been overcomplicating things with all these fancy ingredients and products.
Right.
When really, sometimes the simplest solutions are the best.
Exactly.
And they've been around for centuries.
Sometimes the old ways are the best ways.
I think so, too. So for our listeners out there, if you're intrigued by beef tallow skincare, where can you go to learn more?
Well, we've actually included some links in the description
perfect.
to some high-quality beef tallow products. So if you're interested in trying it out, definitely check those out.
Okay, and as always,
do your research.
Yes, always do your research.
Find what works best for your skin.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's definitely something to consider.
It is.
Especially if you're looking for a natural alternative to conventional skincare products.
And if you're looking for something that's been tried and true.
Right, like it stood the test of time.
Exactly.
And you know, it's interesting to think about, like, in a world that's so obsessed with the new and the flashy, could a return to traditional remedies like beef tallow be the key to unlocking our skin's natural radiance?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think it's something worth exploring.
Yeah, like maybe the answers to our skincare concerns have been right under our noses all along.
Or in our kitchens.
Right.
It's all about being open to different options.
Totally.
And finding what works best for you.
All right, well, that's it for today's deep dive.
That was a good one.
It was. We had fun.
We did.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And until next time,
keep diving deep.
And stay curious.